streaming it on YouTube.
Yeah, and I'll also be recording it, just so I don't have to
That just
upload it
means
to YouTube and have it take forever.
It means you only have to upload it to Anchor, right?
Yeah.
That didn't take much long last time. It only took like 10-20 minutes.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Belichick's Bitches Podcast, your number one podcast in the world by some metric, using the best source, the only source. Do trust me. I am your host, Brennan, along with me, my co-host, Tyler.
Hey guys, what's up?
So, Tyler, you want to give a little overview of what we're going to be talking about today?
Today's going to be mainly about free agency. We're going to go over the top free agent signings. We're going to discuss some players that haven't been signed yet. Also going to do some off-season grades for, I think we're each going to do about 4 teams. And then we're going to end on our each little segments that we're going to do every week. Brennan over there is going to have his college player of the week to look out for, and I'm going to have my fantasy sleeper of the week. So that's going to be the plan for this episode. We might do a little bit more depending on the time, but for right now, that's the over.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to start it off, Brennan, because my team made.
Yeah, I'm fine with you starting this out.
And you guys know, listen, last week I'm a huge Patriots fan. And all off season we've been looking at Stidham as the guy. He's been the quarterback. No, we didn't draft anybody. We didn't even look at Andy Dalton. What are we gonna get? And we finally got our answer. And New England signed Cam Newton, former MVP, for $1 million guaranteed. And his contract can go up to $7.5 million, incentive based if he starts, does well. Let's go start with this. This is, in my opinion, the best signing New England's had of the offseason, without a doubt. And I think it's one of the better signings any team's had in the offseason. Bias, whatever.
Just a little bit.
Listen, the risk is none. If he's injured still and he just doesn't get back to form, with the locker room, which I don't think is going to be an issue. People think that's an issue. The character concern I don't think is there. Listen. If he doesn't work out, it's $1 million off the books. Never happened. And no one's going to remember that in 2 years. If it works out, who knows? We could make some, could New England make some noise with Newton in the postseason? I don't know. The team's a little sketchy. The offense around him's not complete. It's pretty much the same thing Brady had last year. And I don't think Newton's an upgrade over Brady.
It's a very
even a declining
low risk, high reward situation here.
It is.
Which is why I'm okay with the move.
And if you think about it, I was talking to this right before the podcast started. This is not a good offense. It's Edelman. It's N'Keal Harry, who didn't really
produce
do much last year. He was injured a lot. Mohamed Sanu. We're going to move on from Mohamed Sanu. Jacoby Myers. That's the receiving core. The tight end core is a bunch of rookies, and the offensive line's really good. It's not good as the offense around him is.
Are you forgetting about the bulldog in the backfield? Come on now.
I'm going to run the ball 99 times a game, so it's okay.
So
everyone knows what's up. Listen. Love the signing. Low risk, high reward. If he does well, you could franchise him. Actually, I read today, there's no provision preventing us from franchise tagging him at the end of the year.
Which makes sense.
So you could see him get franchise tagged and moved, which would be a complete Belichick thing to do. Tagged and get an extension. I love the signing. And we don't have to start Stidham week 1. That is the biggest win of that. I think I've talked enough about.
We need to see Cam's medicals first. That's the main concern I have with Cam, is his throwing shoulder, which has been bugging him for a while now. And also, we also got the concerns of the concussions, because it's the kind of player that he plays as, very aggressive with the ball as a quarterback. And the only other concern I really have is his accuracy. 59% career completion percentage, not ideal.
No, it's not. At the same time, Josh McDaniels has never had a toy like this. And you know him.
He had Tim Tebow. What are you talking about?
I'm talking about in New England. To be honest, those years in Denver never happened. Okay.
I would love for them to have never happened, but they fucking happened.
It never happened. It's not in my world. Okay.
Josh McDaniels be like Tim Tebow's a first-round pick.
What he did with Tebow, though, he did pretty good things with Tebow. I mean, they won a playoff game with Tebow. That's good.
Thanks to a wide open Demaryius Thomas in overtime.
Georgia Tech legend. They're right. I've talked enough about Cam Newton and what better New England is than Denver. So let's go to Brennan for the first agent player he wants to talk about, because it's not going to be better than Newton.
So the first thing, gonna kind of go back to the Patriots, sort of. Brian Flores down in Miami, signing Byron Jones, the cornerback from the Dallas Cowboys, as their number 2 corner, or potentially even number 1 corner. They have a great 1-2 corner with Byron Jones and Xavier Howard now. And it wasn't that bad of a contract, really, just looking at it. I think they're building something really good there in Miami, and there'll be something to watch out for. Maybe a few years down the road. Definitely not this upcoming season, but they're definitely building something there, and you can definitely see that there is a plan in place, and they are sticking to that plan.
Yeah, what I really liked about the Byron Jones hire is how well he and Xavier Howard's strengths kind of bounce off each other. You know what I mean? They're both really good zone coverage corners, and they're both really athletic. It's interesting because a wide receiver 2 is going to have a tough time when they play Miami. Because if you're a wide receiver 2, you're still going up against a top 10 corner in the league.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely. I really love the Byron Jones sign, especially when you have that much cap. Why wouldn't you go after Byron? No?
Yeah.
$100 million plus. You may have a couple years to go. Strengthen that secondary, and then you can attack the pass rush later. It's going to help the pass rush too. I love that signing.
Yeah, the secondary and the pass rush play off each other very well. You can't have a good pass rush without having a good secondary, and vice versa.
We just
Hello?
Rip the Tom Brady Band-Aid off.
Oh, okay.
We just do it.
Sure.
We're gonna do it.
I mean, you're the fanboy here.
I am the fanboy here. Listen, I knew it was gonna happen. You could kind of see his facial expression on the sidelines the last few games. Hey, any Patriots fans that are mad at Brady, go away. Listen, he signed with Tampa on a 2-year, $50 million fully guaranteed deal. New England have given him that. But
hey, you're like cutting in and out, by the way.
What?
Yeah. I don't know whether you're like pausing or it seems like you're cutting out.
What's going on? Okay, sorry about that. You there?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. New mic difficulties. Brady. No, he went to Tampa Bay. I love the signing for Tampa Bay because I think he's better than Winston. I think that offense is scary. Now, with him, Gronk, Evans, Godwin, Howard, Braid, that team's going to be scary.
Scotty Miller.
I think Tampa Bay I think that team should be the NFC South favorite. I think they're better than the Saints. Be a hot take to some people. I think they're going to be better than the Saints this year. I love the signing. Not as a Patriots fan, but great signing for Tampa Bay. I don't know if you can even say anything else about it.
And my main issue with this is the cohesion early on in the season. I think there's going to be some miscommunications early on. That's where you'll probably see Tampa Bay lose most of their games is early on. And also the new scheme Brady has to learn because he's going from Josh McDaniels to Bruce Arians, and you don't know much about Bruce Arians' scheme. It's very, very pass heavy, throw the ball deep, get those chunk plays. That's my main concern is that scheme with Brady. And there's usually a lot of quarterbacks, since there's a lot of language in that scheme. Most quarterbacks struggle usually in their first year, throwing a lot of interceptions just because of the amount of chances that the quarterback is being asked to make downfield by Arians' scheme.
Yeah. And then again, I think at the same time, with those targets he has, I think his accuracy is going to be important, but those guys can catch anything.
Oh yeah, I'm just saying, don't be surprised if Brady has a uptick year in interceptions.
Oh yeah, well yeah, they're gonna be throwing the ball probably more than any other team in the league, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
Especially with how iffy the running back situation is, you're gonna want to throw the ball. They're gonna throw the ball to set up the run.
Yeah.
Like what New England ran last year. I'm gonna talk about one free agent that I'm gonna be talking about a little bit more later when we talk about the team grades. Kendall Fuller. A huge Kendall Fuller fan. And he was on the Chiefs last year, I think.
Yes, he played corner
for
the Chiefs.
He went over there in the Alex Smith trade a couple years ago.
To Washington.
The Redskins decided, you know what? We're gonna make that right again. So he went back to Washington on a 4-year, $43 million deal. 23 guaranteed. Love that deal. Because you get your number one cornerback. With your generational pass rush, edge rusher over there, and you have a really solid front seven now.
Extremely solid defensive line. Oh baby,
they're gonna be great this year. Buying that, you have him on the outside. Redskins team's looking a lot better than I think a lot of people are going to give them credit for. That Redskins team looks good, as much as
especially on defense.
The defense is going to be just insane.
Especially with Ron Rivera as the head coach. I think the Redskins are sneakily a top 10 defensive unit.
Oh, easily. Now, what's just the worry is their offense.
Yes.
Offense is going to be a trip. I love the Kendall Fuller deal, and we're gonna be talking more about Washington Redskins later. What's another deal on the free agency that you liked?
I'm gonna go with Austin Hooper to Cleveland. I thought was a very interesting one. It didn't make a lot of sense to me, really. Unless Cleveland's planning on using a lot of 2 tight end sets, which honestly I could see maybe happening if they decide to go more run heavy this year. But they still got Odell and Jarvis Landry to feed as well. So I'm not sure what's going on there because now they have Austin Hooper and former first round pick David Njoku at their tight end position. So if they're using the 2 tight end formation, it just doesn't make much sense to me because I see both as more receiving threats than threats in the blocking game. So maybe they're planning on doing more play action since Nick Chubb is a beast and he has a solid backup in Kareem Hunt. But overall, it just didn't make a lot of sense, especially for the amount of money that they paid for him.
And I agree with that. But then again, you look at Kevin Stefanski. He does have a history of 2 tight end sets, especially last year with Kyle Rudolph and Irv Smith. So I think that's something that can be worked out. But yeah, I don't know how David Njoku is going to feel being probably only asked to play 25-30% of the snaps.
Yeah.
Especially when you're a first-round pick and your contract's coming up. I mean, you want, targets and you want snaps. And yeah, Hooper, I think is a great tight end. But he does lack the blocking, especially really on the outside. He was not good for Atlanta blocking last year. I think it'll work out. But yeah, I'm surprised they haven't traded Njoku, honestly.
I'm surprised. Yeah, surprised they haven't traded Njoku. Um, I can see why though. He still brings a lot of athletic upside at the tight end position.
Not
But
many
now
tight
that
ends are as
Hooper's
fast as
there,
him.
it's very head scratching to see. It's gonna be interesting to see what they do with Njoku going forward.
I don't see him being a Brown past this year. But no, let's talk about another tight end. And Eric Ebron. Not a lot. There's a lot of mixed opinions on Ebron out there. But the Steelers gave him a 2-year, $12 million deal with only 5 guaranteed. I love pickup. I think he's going to be a great 1-2 punch with McDonald over there. You know, McDonald's a smack you in the mouth tight end. Just ask Chris Conti about that one. And then you have Ebron on the other side, who's really gifted when it comes to catching the football, as long as he's healthy.
Yeah.
Those two guys on the outside, for whoever's playing quarterback, it should be Roethlisberger.
Hopefully, it'll be Roethlisberger for the Steelers' sake.
It'll give you another target. I think the Steelers are going to be one of those underrated teams this year, which it feels weird saying that.
Yeah.
You really shouldn't underrate the Steelers. When you really look at what they did last year, I blame them. They were starting a duck caller. I mean, duck whistler, whatever. What did Hodges do? Colin?
I don't wish to repeat it.
Offense Hodges. But, you know, they're starting 2 guys that just were not ready.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden you got Roethlisberger back. We can go out with a bang. I think this offense is really tailored to Roethlisberger.
Oh yeah,
and I think the Ebron is just that one more little piece Pittsburgh was missing. That second tight end that could really stretch the field. And
you also got Chase Claypool in the draft, who can act as a wide receiver tight end hybrid sort of role. It'll be interesting to see. I think you could see Claypool be used a lot in the slot between Ebron and an extra wide receiver.
That's something you've seen a lot from Pittsburgh lately. Is these kind of like hybrid players that kind of play both receiver, tight end, running back. Benny Snell. So it is. I think it'll be interesting. I think Washington also played a little bit of running back. I might be wrong on that. I think James Washington was in the backfield a little bit last year.
Yeah.
I really like that. I really like the Ebron. What's another free agent you want to talk about?
I'm gonna go with edge rusher Robert Quinn going to the Chicago Bears. Now it's not so much the player as it's the contract. And the contract. 5-year deal for an edge rusher who's 30 years old already. It's a 5-year, $70 million deal, $14 million per year, with 30 of it guaranteed. So basically, it's just over 2 years guaranteed of that 5-year deal.
Oh.
I don't know what the Bears were thinking with this signing. I mean, maybe if you had signed him to like a 2-year deal, like the guaranteed money says, not a 5-year deal, especially not at that much per year. I don't see Robert Quinn being a $14 million edge rusher productive.
Well, last year in Dallas, he was playing opposite DeMarcus Lawrence.
Yes.
And so he won. I think he led the league in win and pass block shed percentage. I forgot the name of the stat. But he was like the leader in that stat. But yeah, 5 years, 70. I didn't even know that. I actually have the Bears as one of my teams. I didn't see that contract.
Yeah.
That is
not a great contract.
I thought it was more like a $40 million contract.
Nope.
Let's talk about another edge rusher though. Leonard Floyd, who the Bears actually cut this offseason. He signed a 1-year, $10 million fully guaranteed deal with the Rams. And he's going to fill Fowler's place, if I remember correctly. I love the signing because I think it's 1-year prove-it deal. The Rams have actually a pretty good amount of cap space. I don't know how they manage that because
some teams just create cap space out of nowhere and it makes no sense.
Yeah, but that Goff contract eventually got to come up eventually. Leonard Floyd, he still hasn't developed. A lot of people thought he was going. when he came out, he was supposed to be, the next bigger, faster pass rushers. He's developed a little bit every year. I think with the Rams and how good that those defensive tackles are and those defensive ends are, it's going to give him a chance to really get those one-on-ones.
Yeah.
So if he can develop, you're playing alongside the best defensive player that we've ever seen in the past 20 years, maybe longer. And you get to play alongside that guy, it's going to be a pretty good. You could probably put any pass rusher out there, and they'll probably do better than they normally do. I only have one more free agent to talk about. That's sad.
So, my next free agent, I'm going to talk about guard Eric Flowers going to Miami. So, Eric Flowers is kind of a meme in the NFL landscape, especially during his time with the New York Giants when he played tackle. But I think it was like the Redskins that moved him to guard, right?
Yes, it was the Redskins.
Yeah, and he played slightly better. Not great, not as terrible as he played a tackle, just slightly better, because he wasn't being left alone on an island against edge rushers all the time. So Miami decided they wanted to sign Eric Flowers to a 3-year deal, $10 million a year, so $30 million, with $20 million of that being fully guaranteed. So 2 years fully guaranteed of that 3-year deal. Eric Flowers, I think for a guy who's played average for 1 year and terrible for the rest of his career, I don't think he's worth a $10 million per year, especially having 2/3 of his contract being fully guaranteed.
That's true. But I'll play devil's advocate because that's my job. I kind of like the signing, actually. Not so much the contract, but I like the idea behind it. Again, you have a lot of cap there in Miami. You're not going to be paying a quarterback for the next 4 years, 3 years. You're not going to be paying any superstars, any big contracts, because you really don't have many. I kind of liked it. If it doesn't work out, you have a 2-year contract that you're just going to have to kind of move him around from right guard to left guard to maybe a 6th tackle. Yeah, but I think if he's going to be a good, put him there and he's going to lock down that position. Not going to be great. Again, like you said, he'll play average.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a little bit of an overpay, but from Miami, I mean, they'll be able to wash that contract away, even if it doesn't work out.
It's kind of like one of those contracts that you saw, like the beginning of like Madden 20 with Miami, just fucking throwing all their money at everyone, like 120-point bids. That's what Miami did with Eric Flowers here.
It was them and the Redskins that did it a lot in Madden.
Yeah.
The last free agent I have to talk about, but I think people have talked about it to death, so I'm not going to go in depth on it. Todd Gurley. He got $5.5 million guaranteed. 1-year prove-it deal. Yeah, you know how I feel about the Falcons. Just objectively, that is the better free agent signings. That's up there. If it doesn't work out, you paid $5 million for a running back that probably plays 30%. That's probably the worst that happens, because he just can't play as much. Gurley's healthy, which they obviously think he. I think everyone that's been interviewed about it has said that he's pretty much healthy.
Yeah.
That is a really good signing. You upgrade from Freeman to Gurley, who could be a top 10, and you add that to Julio, to Ridley. Sadly, you don't have Hooper anymore. You got Hayden Hurst over there. And you got Matt Ryan. No matter what you think of Matt Ryan, that's a pretty deadly offense. Just the defense is going to be tested.
Yeah, it's usually the defense that's the ones having the problems there in Atlanta. And having Dan Quinn has to be on the hot seat. There's no way he's not on the hot seat, especially for being a defensive-minded coach, and you have a good amount of defensive talent. It's just nothing's getting done with the talent that they have.
Like calling for guys' jobs. I think that's not my place. That's not. I don't think that's any NFL fans' place because in the end of the day, as we are now, we probably.
I'm not calling for his job. I'm just saying that
I'm not.
He has to be. I think he's on the hot seat. I think there has to be some sort of like recognition of underachieving, I guess, in a way. Especially
I don't understand
recently.
how he's still the coach. And with what I said, I still don't understand how Falcons. The last 2 years, he's underachieved. I know they've had injuries, and I know you can't blame the coach for injuries. I get it. But how is he still the coach? I don't know. Yeah, he's probably has the hottest seat in the league.
Probably.
I don't think it's a close. There's not even a close second.
Maybe Adam
Doug
Gase.
Marrone, you could say. Easy, Gase. Yeah, I don't understand it. But hey, Gurley, great signing. What else can you say about Gurley's signing? It's objectively.
I can say a lot about Gurley,
signing.
but I'm gonna not say anything.
Yeah. So I've ran out of my free agent notes, at least the ones that have signed anyway.
Yeah.
What about you?
I have one left. It's another contract one. Corner from the Vikings, Trey Wayne's going to Cincinnati for $14 million a year. I like player. I like Trey Wayne's. He's an average, slightly above average corner. $14 million a year. Not on board with that. I was looking at the cornerback signings. It's like the market for corners seems to be going up, but then you see some deals like this, and then some corners I consider better to be signed for less. So it really makes you wonder what the cornerback market truly is. I think it's trying to find its place right now. But I think Cincinnati overpaid for Trey Waynes.
What was the contract again?
It was a $14 million a year deal.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I don't really have much to add to that. Besides, I love Trey Waynes as a player, but I still think he's got a lot left to really be as a corner. And to pay $14 million, and it's a big investment.
It is a very big investment.
I don't know
especially for a second-year head coach.
Yeah. Taylor.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some of the free agents that haven't signed yet. Because we got 3 really big defensive names still on the market. Jadeveon Clowney still on the market, and everyone knows that.
Yes, he is.
Don't know how you feel about Jadeveon Clowney.
Yes.
Have Everson Griffin still on the free agency, which has surprised me a lot. I know he has a little bit of a character concern, but it really isn't that big a deal. It's been brushed over. And you still have Damon Harrison. You got Snacks still available. 3 really, I'd say, at minimum above average defensive players still on the market. And Clowney said he'll probably sign before the league starts. That's something he has said. He hasn't even narrowed it down to a team yet. So we don't know anything about that. Everson Griffin, I haven't heard any news about.
No.
I looked for
I haven't either.
Everson Griffin news all over.
I think
found anything on it.
A reason you could say for Snacks and Everson Griffin, I'll go into like Snacks differently, but Everson Griffin, he's already 32 years old, and as you said, he has the character concerns. And of course, with the whole thing going on right now, you can't really bring guys in to really evaluate them and try to get a good grasp of what their character is when you bring them in for team visits. So that's probably one of the main reasons Everson's still up there, and maybe because of his asking prices being too high. And then we could also probably say the same for Damon Harrison, except for the character issues. He's 31 years old, so just 1 year younger than Everson Griffin. 2, he might be asking for too much money. And 3, he is a run-stopping nose tackle, which is a very replaceable position that you can find easily in the NFL.
Especially in this draft that had a lot of big run-eater guys.
Yep.
Like, just a couple names just off the top of your head. Matabuki, Blaylock, of course, Brown.
Yeah, Derek Brown.
You have a lot of those guys that can immediately come in and be that guy. But I mean, another thing that I think Harrison really brings to a team, that's the one that surprises me the most. As much as I think he's probably not the best player out of those things, probably I guess you could say the worst player of those three, which that's an argument you really can't argue. Edge rusher and defensive tackle.
Yeah.
But when you think about it, he brings the fierce. He's one of the more fierce players in the league when he's playing. I mean, he's mean. He's kind of like Nadam Kinsu. He's just not stepping on people's heads.
Yeah.
I think that's why I was surprised.
Coincidence he played for the Lions.
By one of those teams. Yeah, I was surprised a team didn't give him 1 year, like $7 million deal yet, just to kind of be that guy on the inside.
Yeah.
Hopefully he does get signed before the season. When the offseason first started, before the Brady left, I had Damon Harrison on New England's wish list. Thought he fit the scheme perfectly.
I think you cut out there, bud.
Really? Can you hear me
now?
Yeah.
All I heard was like he fit New England's scheme perfectly, and then silence for like a few seconds.
I had him on New England's because he does fit New England's scheme, but then New England has to eat $12 million in dead money.
Yeah, New England has a lot in dead cap.
Because of Brady. So I had him on New England. I don't think he's in New England's price range anymore. And that's another one. I haven't really seen a lot of news about Damon Harrison. It's been really quiet on that front. Yeah, I mean, hopefully all those guys will be signed before the season. It's just surprising that it's
taking this long.
Yeah, and for Clowney, I guess it's not that surprising because he's asking for elite pass rushing money when he's
an average pass rusher at best.
I was gonna have you say that because I don't want to get hated.
Above average run stopper, average pass rusher. Has never put up a double-digit sack season. Just watch him. He's athletic. He just his pass rush still needs a lot of work, and he relies pretty much solely on his athleticism to try and beat tackles instead of using technique and his hands and everything that he needs to use. He uses solely his athleticism, which is why he's a below average to average pass rusher. But he's still a pretty good edge run stopper. But that's not really all that valuable to be just an edge run stopper. You're not going to get top tier edge rusher money for being a run stopper on the edge.
He turned down apparently a shorter term deal with Cleveland.
Yeah.
Was in his price range. He said he wanted a longer term deal with the money.
Yeah.
It's one of the main reasons why he hasn't signed yet. I think that's all about the free agents. But let's go to the offseason grades. We each picked 4 teams, 2 teams that we loved their free agency and draft combined, and 2 teams we didn't. Their free agencies.
Yeah.
Drafts. I've started off both segments, so I'll let you start this one off.
Okay.
It's one of the teams with the better off season.
I started off mine with the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm going to start with their grades first. I gave their free agency grade a B, and I gave their draft grade an A. So for free agency, I'm just going over the notable ones. I'm not going over every single one. They signed safety Von Bell. I like that. They signed guard Xavier Sulafilo, which I also like because they really needed to address that offensive line more. And they signed Trey Waynes, which we already talked about. I think it's a good player, not at that price range though. And someone I really wanted for the Broncos, defensive tackle DJ Reader, great run stopper and also a very good interior rusher. He could really push that pocket. And they also tagged AJ Green. Those are their main, their most notable free agency moves that I gave them a B for, maybe even a B+. And for their draft grade, I gave them an A. They drafted, of course, Joe Burrow. Love that pick. He was my number 1 quarterback. They grabbed T. Higgins in the 2nd round, which I think was a great pickup. A lot of people thought he might have gone in the 1st round. They picked off-ball linebacker Logan Wilson in the 3rd, which I thought was another great pickup because he's just a very athletic linebacker, and he has a lot of potential. I really liked him. And they also picked up one of my favorite linebackers, coverage backers in the draft, Akeem Davis Gaither in the 4th. In the 5th, they picked up Khalid Kareem, which I didn't know too much about, to be honest. So I'm not going to say too much about Khalid Kareem. They drafted offensive tackle Hakeem Adeniji from Kansas. I had him as a really good late round tackle, so I think Bengals got a nice little developmental piece there at tackle. And then also another player I didn't know too much about was linebacker Marcus Bailey out of Purdue. So they signed 3 linebackers, and they drafted 3 linebackers, a quarterback, wide receiver, a defensive end, and an offensive tackle. I think they did a lot to really address things that they need to be addressing on this team, and they got some players with very good potential to do it as well as pretty decent floors.
I really did. Yeah, the Bengals had a really good offseason. I don't think enough people talked about it because all the spotlight was on Burrow, rightfully so.
Yeah.
You really looked at what they did after Burrow. I mean, we watched the draft together. We thought both those second and third round picks were great. And then you go to the free agency. I think they did just as good. But I think there's another AFC North team that had, in my opinion, best off-season any team. And it's the Baltimore Ravens. I don't know how they do it. They keep getting better. Free agency wasn't really that active because they're saving money. They have a lot of big contracts in Earl Thomas, Marcus Peters, so they didn't really have that much. Even with that little bit of room, they did a lot of stuff. They traded a 5th rounder for Calais Campbell.
Yep.
Still has 1 or 2 really elite years left. Calais Campbell, and then you also signed Derek Wolfe from the Broncos. You know that. Great signing. He's gonna step in right there, and he's gonna be really good with Brandon Williams and Calais Campbell. That front 7 is scary now. With him, Judon. Also signed Pernell McPhee back, like what feels like the 3rd time. They signed Pernell McPhee back. Got DJ Fluker to play right guard to replace Yonda. Yonda did retire, sadly. And then they also got Jimmy Smith. They re-signed him on a 1-year deal. Really good free agency. But where they, again, like last week, where they really hit was draft. Draft was, I'm not going to go that far into it, but I'm just going to go over the names. You got Patrick Queen, great. J.K. Dobbins, great. Justin Matabuki, great. Devin Duvernay, great. Malik Harrison, really good linebacker. Tyree Phillips and Ben Bredeson, both pretty good guards. One will probably start at left guard this year. And then they also got a couple really good developmental projects up in the later rounds. And Broderick Washington out of Texas Tech, who I actually kind of liked looking at his tape. James Proche at SMU.
James Proche, yeah.
I don't know about that. And they also got Geno Stone in the 7th as safety.
I like Geno Stone. I didn't know really much who he was about when the draft actually happened. But after going over him, some of these Iowa defenders are actually really sneaky. Like Iowa needs more credit for some of the defensive players because some of their players are actually pretty good, and I think Geno Stone has pretty good chance to be a starter in this league.
Yeah, and look at their draft. I see so many potential starters.
Oh yeah.
Is one of my favorite picks in their draft. I think he really is what they need as a 4th defensive end / defensive tackle. Because you have those big 3 guys, like I said before.
Yeah.
And then now you have him as kind of a sub piece. Only be playing about 15 to 20% of the snaps. He's going to be really good, I think, in the league. And I like, of course, J.K. Dobbins, him and Mark Ingram. That's just not fair. That is not a fair running back duo.
Uh-oh. Why isn't this working? Discord disconnected me from the call. Yo, Discord, what are you doing?
You still recording?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was strange.
Weird. I heard the disconnect call on my thing. All right. So we're still recording?
Yeah.
Everything's okay. Cool. What's the other off season you had highly graded?
I had the Arizona Cardinals. Surprise, surprise. Free agency, I gave him an A. Draft grade, I gave him a B+. They signed defensive tackle Jordan Phillips from Buffalo. They signed someone who's old, but I think he's still pretty damn solid. Linebacker Devondre Campbell from the Atlanta Falcons as a coverage backer. They re-signed very versatile former Broncos offensive lineman Max Garcia, who can play guard or tackle. They tendered their kicker Zane Gonzalez, and of course they traded for DeAndre Hopkins. Everyone knows about that, for basically pennies on the dollar. And then their draft, they drafted defensive weapon Isaiah Simmons, because I don't really have him a position listed for him. I just call him a defensive weapon. They got offensive tackle from Houston, Josh Jones, another good pick. They got Lucky Fotu from Utah, the defensive tackle. They got Rashard Lawrence, another defensive tackle from LSU. They got another defensive tackle, and Jason Stowbridge from the University of North Carolina. I thought it was very strange that they took 3 defensive tackles back to back to back. That's part of why their grade is a B+. They also took an inside linebacker who's a very good run stopper, and Evan Weaver out of California. And they drafted running back Eno Benjamin from Arizona State. I think it was the 7th round pick. I think that's a very good pick for them, especially when they gave a transition tag to Kenyon Drake. I think it was a good decision to draft a running back, and Eno Benjamin was definitely a good pickup, especially there, that value in the 7th round.
Yeah, and I really did like so good. He's going to be unfair. I mean, you look at him at Clemson, and he's just he's bigger and faster than almost anyone.
Oh yeah,
and it's going to be crazy.
What sucks is that my main concern with Isaiah Simmons and Arizona is not himself, it's not the players around him, it's the coach, Vance Joseph. I do not trust Vance Joseph. As a Broncos fan, I don't trust Vance Joseph at all. I don't.
It's mean. I think an off season that literally nobody has talked about as being really good, and I think it's just not fair, is Washington, as we kind of stated before. I think Washington quietly had one of the better off seasons in the NFL. I mean, you look at what they've signed. They signed a backup quarterback in Kyle Allen, who I think is just as good as Haskins, because Haskins is a little sketch. Peyton Barber to be an injury replacement for Geis when he inevitably probably gets another knee injury. You have Ronald Darby, pretty good number 2 corner to Kendall Fuller, like we talked before. You signed Sean Davis to be a box safety, which I really like that. He's going to be a good box guy. He's going to be stopping the run a lot. He's very physical. They signed Thomas Davis, which kind of went unnoticed. I didn't even know that until I was doing the research. They signed Thomas Davis too. Yeah. I think it was a 2-year deal.
Yeah.
Really good signing for just a veteran presence.
Yeah,
in the front seven.
Captain and someone who's very familiar with Ron Rivera.
Yeah, I really like that. And they also got Brandon Scherf back. So they, shore up some of their offensive line, although that's going to be their main offensive worry, is the offensive line. Is how well can they protect whoever's at quarterback? Probably going to be Haskins. Although Kyle Allen, maybe not. And then, so we're looking at just from the free agency itself, you're probably thinking, oh, well, who cares? A bunch of role players. And you'd kind of be right until you look at the draft. You add a generational edge rusher. Amazing. You add Gandy Golden, who was one of my favorite later round picks at wide receiver, who I think is going to be in my opinion, is going to be a wide receiver 2 this year alongside of Terry McLaurin. You got Shadiq Charles. I think that's offensive tackle out of LSU.
Yes.
I'm correctly.
Yes.
Antonio Gibson and Khaleke Hudson, both, pretty raw prospects. But again, in Washington, you're probably going to find some playing time. And they also got Thaddeus Moss on an undrafted free agency, who's going to be one of those clutch players. In my opinion, he's a clutch player. Kind of what Washington needs on third down. I think he makes the 53-man roster, and I think he's starting by like week 7, week 8. I think, this is one of my favorite free agencies. I really like what they did in free agency. I really think their draft is underrated because people just look at Chase Young and then they just kind of write it off. Their later round picks are really good too. I see probably 3 future starters beside Chase Young. I gave the grade as an A-. I really like Washington's offseason. I think they're going to be not a team this year to look out for, but I wouldn't be surprised if they finish like 3rd in the NFCs.
Oh, yeah.
I really think they'll be better.
I wouldn't be surprised either.
Now let's go to the
bad off seasons.
Shacked in a full teams, because there was a lot of free agencies. Ugh. So what's one that you just didn't understand?
Time to go after an AFC West opponent. I'm going to go with the Oakland Raiders. I gave their free agency grade a C+, and I gave their draft grade a C. But I organized this differently than I did the good teams. I did moves I liked and then moves I didn't like. So their free agency and draft are kind of smushed together a little bit instead of being separate like my good ones. It's just to make it more clear of the moves I didn't like versus the ones I liked. So I'm going to start with what I liked. Linebacker from the Rams, Corey Littleton. I thought that was a great signing. I wanted the Broncos to try and nab him up. Great coverage backer and very, very good tackler. Wraps up well. They signed defensive back Demarius Randall. Can play slot corner or even a little bit of center field safety. They signed cornerback on the cheap, Prince Amukamara, which I thought was a great signing. That was just a good signing because Prince Amukamara is actually a pretty solid corner. And they got him on pretty cheap because he was just sitting out there on free agency, not really signing for a while. They drafted Henry Ruggs, which I'm kind of in the middle of, between move I like and don't like. I didn't like how he was the first wide receiver drafted. I thought Jerry Jeudy would, conveniently, I know, but Jerry Jeudy was the better receiver. Henry Ruggs, the speed is there, the potential is there. It's just strange how Henry Ruggs is supposed to be this deep speed threat, like a Tyreek Hill. Yet in college, he didn't even have the most catches of 20 plus yards on his team. I think he was like 4th or 3rd on the entire Alabama receiving corps, which I thought was very strange, something concerning. And he's not the most physical receiver either.
Are you telling me that the Raiders drafted a player based on speed other than technique?
I know, right? It's crazy. Before. It's like Al Davis didn't die.
That's mean. But yeah, the Raiders have that tendency to go after speed, and it works
sometimes. Not often.
Often.
And the last move that I liked was them drafting Amika Robertson, the corner out of Louisiana Tech. I really liked him as a mid-round corner, and they nabbed him up, which I was kind of annoyed at. And now we can move on to the moves I didn't like. They signed Jason Witten. He ain't gonna do much for you on the field. He's gonna be more of a coach than anything. So I'm not sure why you'd sign him as a player per se. That move it doesn't really speak to me all that much. They signed Sir Butterfingers himself, Nelson Aguilar. They re-signed Nathan Peterman, and they signed Deshaun Kaiser, So now they have 4 quarterbacks: Derek Carr, Marcus Mariota, Deshaun Kaiser, and Nathan Peterman. Kind of off-putting on that one. They signed former Broncos running back Devontae Booker, who isn't a good running back. I don't know why you'd sign him, to be honest. I mean, he's decent at catching the ball. That's pretty much all he offers. They drafted Damon Arnett in the first round, who I thought was a third, fourth round corner. They drafted John Simpson, the guard out of Clemson. I didn't even have him in my top 10 interior offensive linemen. I thought there were better players still on the board. And they also drafted wide receiver Brian Edwards out of South Carolina. He makes big plays. He has decent speed. I don't see him doing very much, especially how they drafted like 3 other receivers in this class. He's just a poor man's Brashad Perriman to me, and I don't see him getting much playing time really. So I gave their draft a C and the free agency a C+.
Brashad Perriman got paid, by the way. Chicago. The amount of potential Chicago had years ago feels like that was like 10 years ago. I don't know what they're doing anymore. I don't know their move. I don't understand their moves. I was gonna do what you did with things I liked and things I didn't like. I can't do that here because I didn't like any of their free agencies. We're gonna go down. Artie Burns. Man has like the yips. He can't play corner.
First round bust.
And it's sad because I really, really liked him in college. And I thought he was gonna be really good for Pittsburgh. He's like got this Dion Bush, who's more of like a third safety / special teamer. Okay. Traded for Nick Foles, which, believe it or not, that's like their best move.
Yeah, honestly.
And Nick Foles is Nick Foles. I mean, yeah, I know he beat us in the Super Bowl. I know everyone says that. I get it.
But Nick
Foles. Oh, we're keeping this PG-13.
I censored myself.
We got Ted Ginn, who's he's about 25 yards. Jimmy Graham was the one contract I didn't get. You know, you want to sign the other guys on that list, fine. I don't understand it, but the idea is there. He gave Jimmy Graham a lot of money, and he hasn't been good for 3 years. Hey, I understand tight ends are hard to find. He can't block. He's not as fast as he used to be. He can't jump as high as he used to do. When Aaron Rodgers can't get you 7, 8, 9 touchdowns, it's an issue. You sign him to a big contract when you already draft and then you're going to draft Cole Kmet. That doesn't make sense. He gave Jermaine Ifedi a contract. This is going to be Ifedi's like 4th chance. He's journeyman right tackle. Robert Quinn contract, I think we talked about earlier. A lot of money. You already got Khalil Mack. That's a question mark. And they re-signed Danny Trevathan to go shed some more heads. That rhymed. I'm pretty actually happy with that. They continue to get older and slower. Did it last offseason. We're like, okay, fine. NFL is a young man's game. Now, that kind of sucks in some sense because you like to see players around a long time, but it's a young man's game. And you re-sign like 6, 7 guys that are already past their primes. That just doesn't make sense. I like the draft a little bit with Cole Kmet. They drafted a couple good corners to kind of deal with the loss of they lost a corner for agency. I can't think of his name. Prince Mukamara. But a lot of these, a lot of these guys, I don't even see making the roster. Week 1, I don't see Jimmy Graham being on the roster. Week 1, I don't see Artie Burns being on the Week 1 roster. I didn't understand Chicago's offseason. I think it's one of the worst, beside another team that we're going to talk about later. Everyone kind of dogged. What's another offseason you just...
I also just want to mention real quick for Chicago. I believe they signed Khalil Mack, I want to say his brother, as a undrafted free agent, which I don't think he'll make the 53, but it's just funny to see.
Imagine having to play the same team as your superstar brother. That's gotta hurt your confidence.
Just a bit.
It's got to just watch your brother be one of the best players in the world, and you're hitting for a practice squad spot. That's got to be tough.
All right. So the other offseason I didn't like, I'm gonna go all the way down to Duval County, Florida, the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Ooh.
I gave their free agency grade an F, and their draft grade a C+. So, starting off with the moves I like. I was looking at their fucking... Oh, my bad. I was looking at their free agency. They didn't really sign anyone at all, and especially not anyone of note, which is... Ugh. So the moves I like are all draft. They drafted a Killvon Chason in the first round. I like that pick, especially with the Yannick Ngakoue situation. I do not see him playing for Jacksonville at all this year, or in the future even. Wide receiver Laviska Shenault out of Colorado. I already talked about him in the first episode. And Devon Hamilton out of defensive lineman out of Ohio State. He's the Ohio State. I like him. He's a good player. The only thing that's really concerning about Devon Hamilton is inconsistency. He was very inconsistent throughout college, and so that's his main concern, because he's not a bad pass rusher. He can push his pocket. He's not a terrible run defender. He's a nice little developmental player, but you have to get him to be consistent. And their only other move that I liked was signing undrafted free agent Georgia safety J.R. Reed. And then for the moves I didn't like, drafted C.J. Henderson, number 9th overall. A guy that absolutely refuses to tackle and somehow gets drafted in the top 10 of the NFL draft to play defense. We already talked about that. Shaquille Quarterman, the linebacker out of Miami. I felt like he was a bit of a reach there. Where they took him, I think it was in the 4th round. I had him as like a 6th round, 7th round pick, and they took him in the 4th. I mean, he's athletic, but I don't see the technique there at all. And they also traded Calais Campbell for a 5th, which Tyler talked about a little bit with the Ravens offseason, which it was a move to open up cap space, but I just feel it was unnecessary because they did absolutely nothing with the cap space anyway.
FC South teams and just having bad off seasons. You saw it last year a lot with the Houston, and then we're going to go back to Houston. I can't let what they did go. No, I should. It doesn't affect me, but I have to talk about it. Well, let's go with what they signed. They signed Randall Cobb. Good slot receiver. I think he was a little overpaid. Pretty good slot receiver. Okay, fine. They re-signed Darren Fells, who had a really good year last year, which came out of nowhere. He's been kind of one of those journeyman blocking tight ends, and he just had a monster year last year with Watson. They signed Philip Gaines and Vernon Hargreaves, 2 pretty raw corners. They need a lot of corner help. They re-signed A.J. McCarron for like $4 million, in my opinion, for McCarron, but whatever. They re-signed Bradley Roby for like 3 years for 36, which is a lot of money for Bradley Roby.
Yeah.
And he did the thing. What else can you call that DeAndre Hopkins trade?
Oof.
Listen, I mean, I know it's beating a dead horse. I got to talk about it. Is a top 3 receiver in the league. Some people would argue top 2. There's some people that would argue top 1. But take your pick. He's an elite receiver, and you give him up for a running back who's been injured the past 2 years and who couldn't beat out Kenyon Drake when he got healthy. And you get him for that and a 2nd round pick. And then you know what you do with that 2nd round pick? You get Brandon Cooks, who's on his 4th team.
4th team in like 5 years, yeah. I mean, he's not a bad receiver, don't get me wrong, but 14 in 5 years, he's a solid receiver.
A 2nd round pick? I didn't understand it. You know, I don't nothing against Brandon Cooks because I mean, hey, he did really good for New England.
Until he got laid out in the Super Bowl.
So Malcolm Jenkins decided to just completely destroy him. Listen, no offense to Brandon Cooks, but you're not Hopkins. That's what you're going to be expected to do, be a Hopkins. And especially with how that offensive line's still trying to grow, and you know Watson, he's gonna have to fight. Poor Watson. I feel bad for him. And then their draft wasn't really that good. They got Ross Blacklock. That was like the best pick they had.
And that was a bit of
I
a
didn't
reach
really like
too.
any of their other picks. It was, but at the same time, they need someone to replace DJ Reader.
Yeah.
And I think he's gonna be able to help fill that void. I gave the overall grade a D minus. The only reason I didn't give it an F was because they got Brandon Cooks, and in a bubble, it's at least a receiver that helps you get better. But man, I feel bad for Watson. Because he's going to be on that team for a long time, and I don't see them being good for a long time.
Hopefully he won't be on that team for a long time. But I have a feeling he will be. He seems like that kind of player.
No way. I mean, it's everyone wishes for him to not be Houston for life against our Houston fans.
But I think even some Houston fans wouldn't be mad at Deshaun.
Again, I'm not going to call for anybody's job because again, that's not my place. O'Brien has got to step up. He's got to. You know, you look at everyone around him. Everyone else in the division has a division title. Even Jacksonville has a division title.
Yep.
Colts have a division title. The C won it. How do you have consistently one of the better rosters in the AFC South and not win one? Yeah, I know you get farther in the playoffs, but you can't win it? I mean, I don't get it. I don't get how Bill O'Brien's still the coach there.
Especially GM. I don't understand how he's the GM.
Gives me hope. Gives me a lot of hope. That's what it does.
Those Belichick boys. Oh my lord.
Gave the grade a D minus, and honestly, if someone was given an F, I wouldn't bat an eye on it.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree.
Do you have another team that you didn't like?
Huh?
Did you do both the teams you didn't like? Yes,
yep.
You did. I am asleep on the mic. Well, we are at, if I'm not mistaken,
we are at an hour and 2 minutes.
We're gonna finish it up with the little weekly segments, and then next week we'll be talking about the bigger storylines. We've actually finally caught up. Hooray for us! It's 2 weeks. We're gonna end it with our each little segments that we got, and then next week will be all about the headlines. Favorite part. So, what's your college outlook? What you got for us?
All right, I'm gonna get called biased for this, but this is because I know these players the best. It's a Georgia player. Safety Richard LeCounte. I think he's gonna be a good player to watch this year. Pretty exciting to see what he can do. That Georgia defense is gonna be good again. They didn't lose very many starters at all on their defense. I think they only lost 3. I want to say, and Jared Reed was one of them. LeCounte is one of the best players on that defense, and you could fully expect him to be a first-round pick upcoming soon. So keep an eye on Richard LeCounte. You can LeCounte on it.
You're going to make that joke. I knew you were going to make that joke. I made that joke before. He's really going to make that joke again. It's really going to happen. I am sorry, anyone who's listening. Couldn't stop him. Okay, so fantasy player of the week. I'm going to be doing both players that are to look out for and to stay away from. This week, I got a player that I think is going to be available in the middle to later rounds that is going to be a steal, especially if the guys really don't know what they're doing. John Brown on the Buffalo Bills. He was great last year. Nobody talked about it because all the focus was on New England. But John Brown was really good last year. He led the league in AFC in receiving until like 3 or 4 weeks left in the season. He was great. And you'd think, well, they added Stephon Diggs, so his fantasy stats are going to go down. I think it's the opposite. He was getting doubled. the majority last season because they didn't really have any other receivers besides Cole Beasley. You can't really double Cole Beasley unless he's really on a roll, which that doesn't happen often.
No.
Sorry, Cole Beasley. All the double teams are immediately going to go to Stephon Diggs. He is going to be doubled every play. So John Brown's going to be getting a lot less attention. He's going to be going against the corner twos. He's going to be going against, the one-on-one mans. And John Brown is going to do the same thing he did last year. He's going to get 800 to 1,000 yards receiving, I think. I think the Bills have 2 1,000-yard receivers on that team. And especially if Allen gets a little better, which he's going to, I promise. I'm a huge Josh Allen person, even though I'm in the AFC East with him, and I hate playing against him. I think he's going to be really good next year, and I think John Brown is going to be one of those guys that you can have as your wide receiver 2, maybe your wide receiver 1 after you have some injuries. I think John Brown's going to be some guy you want to highlight on your draft board. I know I'm going to be. That's pretty much it about John Brown, though. Look out for John Brown. Draft him.
You couldn't count on it.
We got.
Sorry.
If I had the editing privilege, I would totally edit that out. Anyone.
Oh, too bad. You don't have the editing privilege. It's all me.
Thank you again, guys, for anyone that sat through this hour-long spiel. Appreciate it. A couple idiots talking football, trying to get our foot in the door of the NFL or NCAA. Whoever's out there, me, me and him, just a couple idiots. Thank you for listening this long. And next week we'll be coming out with week 3 podcast.
We'll see y'all later. Thank y'all for listening.